All right, welcome back. We are Game 2014 in the fall 2020 semester at George Brown, and it's week 6, part 2 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about the factory method pattern and the abstract factory, and now we're going to do a little demo with Unity. So as I asked you to, go grab Lab 4 Starter. So I'm going to do the same thing. It's going to go up online here, and I'm going to go to Lab 4, and I'm going to download it. I'm going to put that on my desktop. So let's put that on. Right now it's in downloads. I'm going to copy it or cut this, put it on my desktop under GBC, and paste when it feels like pasting. And when it doesn't feel like pasting, it has to do with OneDrive. Chances are. Oh, God, I love OneDrive. Not. I do not love OneDrive. OneDrive causes me all kinds of problems. All right. Alright, so what I want to do here is I want to extract it. Notice they changed from master to main. That's a new thing that they've done on GitHub. I'm going to change the name of this. By the way, make sure that there's not like folders within folders here. And change this to 4B. You guys are the B team. And I'll just get rid of these two things all together. B. I'm going to pull up Unity Hub, and under Unity Hub we're going to load in, we're going to add, I'm going to go to 4B, and I'm going to click select folder, and I'm going to just click onto it, start. Alright. It's going to take its time, and you guys should be up and running by now, and you should be ahead of me. So hopefully you guys downloaded, while this is doing this, let me talk about LDPlayer a little bit. So LDPlayer, again, I briefly talked about it in the last video. I said this is probably a good thing to use as opposed to Genymotion. Notice my player looks like this, but by default it looks like a tablet. You need to configure it differently. So if you go to the little cog on the top right, which says settings, then I want to switch, under advanced, you want to switch your resolution to mobile, right? And in the mobile resolution, I've chosen 1080 by 1920, so please choose that. You would configure your CPU and RAM configuration to match your system. If you don't have like more than 2 cores, obviously you couldn't assign 4 cores, right? Under model, that's the first part. So the first part is this, the type of resolution, which will switch your the way this thing looks. Instead of it looking like a tablet, it'll look like in portrait mode. If I go to model, I want to switch. My preset that I want to use is the Samsung Galaxy S10. So please switch to that. Okay, Samsung Galaxy S10. And that's the S10 Plus is what I want to use. All right. Game settings I'm not touching. It's going to stay at 60 frames per second. The last setting I want to change here to make all the changes compatible with Unity is change your ADB debug to open connection. And then press save. What it's going to do is it's going to ask you to reboot if you or restart your VM if you're not compatible with the S10. So please do that now. And when you're done, check mark please in the participants panel, so I know that you're ready to go. But yours should look like mine. Meanwhile, While that's happening, I'm pulling Unity up and it looks like Unity's loaded. And what I want to do with Unity is I want to go into my scenes and go into main. Okay. So again, I'm just going to wait to get you guys ready for LD Manager. Let's get you guys going. So again, I'm looking for a check mark if you've got LD Manager working. So where is ADB? You go into Settings, Kevin, and you go into Other Settings, and where it says ADB Debug, you choose Open Connection. Okay. So, are we slow? Are you guys doing it? Are you guys trying it? Are you guys going to watch? What are you going to do? Can I get any feedback from anybody? I didn't drag 4A in there. That was from last time. You don't have that in your other settings? Okay. Just finished install and now setting it up. You're begrudgingly doing it just because I've asked you to. All right. Yeah, so Kevin, again, under settings, you're going to go to other settings. That's where I have it. Unless mine somehow is a different version than yours, that's what mine looks like. I haven't done anything different to change everything. So if I click on other settings, you're going to see ADB Debug and Open Connection. You may have to scroll up and down to find it. I haven't. I don't need to do that, but you may. But again, the settings are in advanced. You click mobile. You select 1080 by 1920. Theoretically, you can put in any resolution you want to match the type of device. Okay. If typically you start off as tablet, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go with mobile. Model. I'm choosing a preset model, which is the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. Okay. Game settings are 60 frames per second. I could make them faster. It could go up to 120 frames per second, but we're going to keep it at 60. Right. This will make a difference in terms of our play. Okay. And because it'll go as fast as you tell it to, the rate setup. From another settings perspective, I've just changed ADB Debug to Open Connection. Yours is running and empty. Good. As long as is yours like this, Michael? Does yours look like this? Like if I go to Home, there's a Home tab and there's a Lab 4A tab. This is what it's going to look like later on, right? But really, all I care about is this Lab 4A. No Lab 4A yet, not yet. But we're gonna get there, right? So let me show you what that looks like. So I'm gonna drag and drop this, uninstall it, so you don't have to be. You can be the same as me. All right, so I got one person, Russ. You've downloaded it and you're ready to go. Anyone else is ready? Because I want to try and move on. If you're good, if you're like me, if you have this, check mark please in the participants panel. If you're not good, don't put anything for now. Cat's good. Nate's good. John's good. John, I know you're using BlueStacks. You might like this just as good as BlueStacks. All right, so we've got about 5 people. I wouldn't mind if there's 14. Maybe half of you would be nice. Like a couple more people to be able to get this done, and then we can move on. I'm waiting only because I don't want to lose you guys when I do the next step. If you're watching the video, please fast forward to when I'm actually doing something. Okay. I'm guessing that other people aren't successful, or they're going slow. Okay, I got 6. I need one more person to do this with me, and then we have at least half of you. Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right, we're moving on. All right, so now that we have this up and I have Unity up, hopefully you guys have Unity up as well, I've got to make sure that I'm set up properly for Unity. So again, I'm going to go to File, Build Settings, and make sure that I'm on Android. And then click Switch Platform, please. Make sure you do that. If you don't, then you won't be able to connect to your project. Oh, just a thing for those people who are watching on the video. Some people, for whatever reason, think it's okay to submit my code, like actually my project, directly from GitHub. Or basically, what they've done is they forked my project and they've set it and they've sent it to me as you know, for their lab 3. That's going to net a 0 mark. All right, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not the exercise here. The exercise for you guys is trying it out and doing your homework. So when it comes to your mid-semester assignment, your mid-semester exam, you know what to do. All right. If you don't know what to do by then, and if you haven't done this, then it's a bad thing. Yeah, all I did was I changed my build settings. Sorry, Kat. All right. So I've changed my platform to Android is what I've done. Okay. In my player settings, let's make a couple of other changes. It can't be lab 3B. It's got to be 4B. I based it on last week's lab 3B. I made 4B. So change the product name up here, and under where it says other settings, change your product name down here also to say 4B. Okay, and then save the scene. And then file, save the project. All right, what I want to do now is I want to build and run because I want to try this out and see if it works the way it is on LDPlayer. So I'm going to go build and run. It's going to ask me where I want my build. I'm going to make a new folder called builds. And inside my builds folder, I'm going to call this thing lab 4B and then save it. And it says make sure USB debugging has been enabled. Yeah, that's one thing. I got to refresh, and it's going to do it already, but the device, I forgot to refresh it, but it should show up here. If it doesn't show up, that would be a bad thing. The fact that it's working at all means that it's detected it. Chances are. And let's see how good it is at putting it over. Again, if you're watching the video and you're watching this transfer from Unity to LDPlayer, fast forward until you're there. For people who are here, all I'm doing is I'm transferring what I have to LDPlayer so we can play with this today as opposed to Genymotion. However, if you're someone who doesn't want to do this and you want to stay with Genymotion, that's perfectly fine too. However, I recommend trying this out and you'll see how easy it is to set this up. And you may want to go with this way anyway. A couple things to note is that LDPlayer, although easier to set up, has less presets than Genymotion. Genymotion can actually download a bunch more, but you can still set them all up manually with LDPlayer. So to me, either way is good. Advantages of LDPlayer, there's a lot of stuff you can download. A good example of that is The Last of Us, and a bunch of other stuff is like here right at your fingertips. Most of the some free games are already preloaded onto your VM, and you can always go to the LD store and attach any other games you're interested in playing or looking at, which is pretty cool. All right, we're at the last stages. I'm building my Gradle project and it's copying it across to LDPlayer, and it says Unity dashboard. Okay, we're gonna get back to that Unity dashboard in a second. I don't know why it went to Unity dashboard, but we went to here, yay, and it's looking like it's pretty good. Right? Notice that the fire rate is not as good, but my movement rate is pretty good. Right? Fire rate's not as good as because of the way we did firing. If you used delta time, then yours might be better than mine. All right, that's pretty cool. Let's close that off. I've already gone across. You should be able to do what I've done already. If you're with me and you've done what I've done, please check mark on your participants panel. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So if you've already gone across and built it across to your LDPlayer, Nate's good. And I'll wait for other people to do it too. And now feedback, guys. What do you think? Do you think it's the same, better, worse? Patrick says X. What's wrong, Patrick? What's going on with you? My internet is really bad. Okay. I'm so sorry, Patrick. You're still downloading Lab 4a. Okay, no problem. Don't download 4a, download Lab 4. 4a is the solution. You don't want that. That'll just be me, and you won't get any marks for that. How it's different? Kat's asking how it's different. Well, it's different in that the setup is like super easy. Like the stuff that we did for Genymotion for some people is much harder and didn't work for some at all. Like it wasn't working for them at any time. And they've come to me and said, like, I can't make Genymotion work at all. Can I use my phone? And I'm like, yeah, you can. But what about when we go next semester, next half of the semester, we go to a tablet orientation or something else? What are you going to do then? Get a tablet? Right? How does it help you? No, it does not help you other than this is part of the course, right? For us to know have different tools, so that way we can find other solutions. Yeah, thank you for that, Kat. Thanks. But yeah, it's definitely an alternative. How about Russ? What are you finding at Russ? Just want to get your feedback as well. See, Michael is already up and running as well. Just want to wait a little longer so that everyone's good to go. Patrick looks like he's taking away the X. So, any feedback, Russ? You're liking it? Feels smoother than Genymotion? I think so too. Somehow, maybe it's an illusion for me. I mean, I'd be able to run, Genymotion pretty good anyway, but I think that LDPlayer. Okay, Russ, I know, you're right. But I'm always looking for better things. But you're absolutely right. If we had started with this, then you would be like, why Genymotion? Right? Michael says performance is 100% noticeable improvement. Thanks, Russ. I'll start with this. Actually, I'm going to keep this. I'm not going to do Genymotion with the next one unless I need to. Because then you don't have to have the translation, APK, any of that stuff, right? So, good. Okay, so I'm getting good feedback for this one. All right, so I think most of us, I mean, again, I'm getting some good feedback from a lot of people here. I've got about 4 check marks. I'm sure that other people are very close as well. I'm going to move on to the other piece. So why did I give you this thing as a start? This structure here? Well, it's very similar to what we did last week, except that I have additional textures that I've given you. I've got a pixel enemy drone that has some animation that I created for you, very simple this morning, as well as a player and a pulsing bullet. So those 3 things. What I want to do is I want to put together a couple of additional folders here. So under assets, I know I'm going to need a couple more folders. One, I'm going to make a brand new folder called sprites. Again, this is just from an organizational perspective. Is it going to affect your game? No, but it's always good to keep organized with larger or more and more assets. I'm going to make another folder called animations. Okay, again, this is that's good. I'm glad that you like it. So animations, sprites, as well as the last one. So I've got a couple of new folders. Inside sprites, I know I'm going to have an enemy, different bullets, as well as my player. So sprites, let's make a new subfolder called player. I'll make a new subfolder, and this is all preparation, called enemy. And a new subfolder called pulsing bullet. All I'm doing is I'm separating out my sprites, and my animations are going to have the same structure here. So again, same thing. Make a new folder called player, a new folder called enemy, and you're going to say why duplication, you'll see, and a new folder called pulsing bullet. All right, so I got my structure in place for my animations and my sprites. How do I use them? Well, in my textures, I have this. If I scroll down, I have pixel player ship 01, all the way to pixel player ship 0 or to 1 2. I'm going to grab this, kind of select it all. I'm going to go into my inspector right now, and where it says filter mode bilinear, we're going to change to point no filter, and then press apply. That's the first change. In fact, you can do that for all the pixel enemy drone stuff as well. Might as well do all those changes now. Okay, as well as the pulsing bullet. So we've made all those changes, so that way everything's ready for us to start using soon. All right, I want to do the player first. So I already have a player prefab, but I want to make the animation happen. And the simplest way to do this in Unity is to basically grab all of the frames of animation. That's what these are. Ship 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 12. Drag and drop it into the hierarchy like this. And when I do that, it's going to ask me for what do I want to call the animator. It says animator, but actually it's the animation. And what you want to put here is the name of the clip. So normally I put in something like player idle and then dash clip. So I know that that's what it is. Okay, my player idle clip. My player idle clip. My player idle clip, which is inside of my textures right now, is right here. And my pixel player ship is up here. There's two different things, and they look slightly different. I'm going to show you the different icons. This icon, pixel player ship, that looks like this. This is actually the animator controller. And this one right here in Unity 2020 is the motion or the animation. I like to call it the clip. All right, so I want you to go back, and let's take those two objects, the pixel player ship 01 and the player idle clip. So you can use control click and drag and drop those into the animations player folder. And I want to grab all of these, the pixel player sprites, and drag and drop those into the sprites player folder. Okay. Let's go back into the animations player folder and rename that pixel player ship 01. So it says player animation controller, because that's what it is. Player animation controller. Some like to call it player controller, but it's already called player controller somewhere else, so I just like to call it player animation controller. Okay. The pixel player ship is here, right? It's an object that I don't need anymore. Let's delete it. So right click, delete. But what I want to do is in the player object, which is a prefab right here, this player object right here, I'm going to add another component to it at the bottom. I'm going to add another component, add component to the player, which is going to be of type animation controller, which is actually called the animator. That's what I want to add, an animator. So there's the animator. The animator, when I add an animator component, I can drag and drop the player animation controller onto where it says animator controller right there, the animator. Let's just drag and drop this player animation controller onto the animator. And now we have a reference. What does the player animation controller look like? If I double click on it, it's going to bring up something that looks like a state machine. There's an entry, and then there's the state, the only state that we have here in the player controller, player animation controller. This is the entry animation, and it's going to keep playing this animation over and over again. On the right, notice that there is a speed. The speed is normalized, so 1 means at 100% speed, and 0.5 would be 50% speed, or half as fast. 2 would be twice as fast, and so on. Okay, and this shows you the clip motion. This motion is the motion object, which is right here. Notice it says the player idle clip. If I wanted to use more than one clip, let's say for example I had from a player idle, I had a player attack type clip, right? Every time I press the fire button or a bomb, then I change my animation, I would have another animation here. We're going to go over that next week. All right, so that is the entry point and my player animation. What does this look like now when I go back into my scene? So if I go back to scene, if I click on player, you can see now that I have this extra component that I made called player animation controller, or the animator. And if I press play, then I'm going to have my player actually do a little bit of animation. It pulses a little bit like that. See? All right, cool. Are you with me? So if you're with me, check mark. If you're not, X. So again, I'm not sure if Joss had a chance to go over animations with you guys in his class, but that's how easy they are. Emmanuel, you have an X. Does that mean you're not able to do it, or did you fall behind? Can I help? The screen is completely black, but I can hear the music. That's weird. You fell behind. Okay. That is weird. I wonder why that is, Daniel. Shouldn't be like that. All right, well, let's build this now again onto LDPlayer. So I'm going to go back to LDPlayer. I'm just going to go into File, Build and Run. And let's see, hopefully it'll just run and I won't have a problem. And it's because, of course, I didn't go into my build settings and say refresh. That's where the problem. That's why I'm getting that weird hiccup. That's really weird, Daniel. I'm not sure why that is. I've encountered that before. So I'm just waiting again. If you're watching the video, please fast forward to when everything goes over to the phone so you don't have to wait. All right, we're good. And you can see that I have my animation working now nice and smoothly on the VM. All right, again, I'm just tracking you guys. Check mark if you're with me, X if you can't make it work, but this is how simple it'll be if you run from one thing to the other. So again, it's not a really exciting animation. I've got 12 frames that I'm running at regular speed. And I made that little animation by just rotating the wings this morning in my program. It's nothing too crazy. Building to phone. Oh, you're trying it out to see if it works on the phone, Mike? Okay. All right, so oh yeah, because it won't work for you. This won't work for you, or it will work for you. I'm talking about the simulator. Okay, good. All right, so if you guys are all with me, thank you for that. I'm just going to go to the next step. So now this is great. I've pushed this up to the phone. I know it works. This is feature, like that feature is good. I'm going to save my scene now, and I'm going to file save my project. And this is a great place to put it up on GitHub. But what if I'm working with somebody else? And if I'm working with somebody else, a lot of times I don't use GitHub right away. I use something else called Unity Collab. So if I look at Window, and if I go to General, and if I go to Services, Services is built in. Everyone has access to this for free. Notice that there's a service called Collaborate. It says create together seamlessly. You want to go there and you want to click on here where it says on. It tells me services general settings. I want to select an organization. For this time around, I'm going to select me, but you can select any other organization you set up. I'm going to select me for this one. All right, I'm going to create a project ID for me. And then I'm going to turn on Collaborate. Okay, It's going to do its thing, and what it's going to provide is a bit of cloud storage for me so I can work with Unity. All right, here's Collab. When I do, I've got all these little blue little circles. If I zoom in, you can see what they look like. They have these little pluses, what they actually are. Right? This means that these are all the additions. Also, next to where it says preview package in use, you can see that there's a little symbol here that is the collaborate symbol. Right? If you click on the little symbol there, it'll say, do you want to put all of this in the cloud? And the answer is, yes, you do. And I'm going to make this initial commit. It's my initial commit to the cloud, right? Not to GitHub. I'm going to click publish. What this does is it pushes 5.2 megabytes to the cloud, right? To Unity Cloud. Again, everyone should be able to do this, not a problem. There's no requirement for you to be a pro user or anything like that. Okay, under services, I've got Collaborate on now. But there's another check mark you can go to where it says dashboard. Let's go to dashboard for here. And it's going to show us a couple things here, right? It shows us lab 4B. This is the lab that I'm in right now. Okay? And it also shows me that Collaborate is on, and so is Analytics by default. Okay? For me. I can turn on multiplayer if I like. I can enable multiplayer. I can also turn on remote configuration and cloud build and a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave Collaborate on right now. If I go to Collaborate, it's going to show me what I'm collaborating with. These are all my assets that I've put up on Unity Cloud. Okay. I'm also going to see other things on the left. Usage, how many gigabytes I have left. Notice I have 25 gigabytes. You may have a smaller amount. I have other projects that I've also put up online here that I'm using. Okay. So Lab 4, I can look at all my projects, right? These are all the projects that I have, right? The project name is here. Under the Unity dashboard, I can do other things, right? There's a lot of other options here that I'm not going to explore with you guys today, but they're here, tons of them. But what I want to do is look at a couple things. So here's the timeline, shows you the timeline of the build, what I've done. This is my update. This is under Collaborate. Assets, right? Storage, in progress, if there's anything in progress, accelerator, support, and usage. If I go back to this, if I look at settings, right, for my project, if I look at project settings, this project, I can also look at users. Under users, the only person that I'm collaborating with is myself right now. But I could add users and manage seats, so I can add up to 2 other people for free that are part of my organization. So, why am I showing you this? Well, what if I was working on a Mac? So let's take a look at a Mac machine that I have available to me right now. So I'm going to go to Team Viewer. I'm going to look at my MacBook Pro, right? Again, this is for you guys to watch, for you guys who don't have a Mac. There's me. Logging into MacBook Pro remotely. And I'm going to bring up, quit this and restart it. I'm going to bring up Unity Hub. And I'm going to refresh my cloud projects. Notice that Lab B now appears there, right? Before it didn't. So now if I click onto it, I can actually do this. It says I can download my project from the cloud. So if I'm working with somebody else, this is the workflow. If I click this, it says, by the way, it says I'm missing the editor type. I can select my version of the editor and download. That's all it means. I can select a folder to put this in. Let's put it on the desktop. Right? Select folder. And it's going to download and install and run my Unity across on the Mac. Okay? This is fantastic, guys, for a bunch of reasons. One, I can work cross-platform, right? With myself, in this case. Or with somebody else. I can share my files without putting it up on GitHub. Okay? Not yet. I can put them up after. And you can see what it's doing. It's actually transferring all the data that's up on Unity Collab. It's transferring all over into my projects, my project online, right? Which is going to be on my Mac. Does anyone here? Is anyone running a Mac in this section? I know I had 1 or 2 people on the other section that were running Mac. Okay. So just bear with me here. I just wanted to show you that, and then I'll skip back to you guys. So Unity Collab is awesome because if I want to push a change, I can push a change and my scene isn't atomic anymore. My scene is something that I can work with you on. Whereas with GitHub, if I change my scene, and you have to pull my scene in order for you to make changes to it. Here, it's not the case. I can update a prefab, and all you need to do is update or synchronize yours with mine, and we're good to go. Which is, to me, pretty awesome. So here we are. Look, here we are up online. I'm going to go to main, and now we have this. One thing to note is that in my, I want to go to 2D. There's 2D. It's hard for you to see, but again, this is using my thing online. One thing to note also is that I haven't moved. So if I go to File, Build Settings, I need to change my platform up online to iOS. So I want to switch my platforms. And when I do that, right, it's going to allow me to build for iOS applications on the iPhone. Okay? Again, the process is going to be very similar. The difference between building to an iPhone and building to an Android device is you have simulators that are built in. The Xcode simulator is that one we're going to use. I'm not going to show you how to use the Xcode simulator today because I have to build a signing profile for iOS, and I want to create a little organization for us to kind of work together on. For now, let's leave it alone. If we were at school right now, and if I was in front of a Mac with you guys instead of, and so are you, then we would do the Mac build, right, to try it out. But we're not in front of a school, or we're not at school right now. We're remote, so we're not going to do that. But notice how I've got my build right here, and it says run in Xcode, the latest version. Run in Xcode as release. I can also run debug if I really want to, right? It also says I can make it a development build. When I go to player settings, there's some changes I have to make. Okay, so under player settings in Unity, one thing I got to make sure is that my product name is correct up here as well as down here. Okay, that's important to make those things good. I'm using, it says iPhone and iPad by default. I want to select iPhone only. I don't want to make an iPad app right this time. Okay. There's other options here that'll turn on as well, right? Just like before. Again, I'm not going to do the build with you, but one thing I need to do is inside of my Unity editor, right? I want to go to my my game. So again, one thing I noticed is that I don't really have my game scene here in this layout. Let's get tall layout happening, right? There's tall. And I can go to my game and switch to simulator. And you're going to see that it starts me off with the simulator here. And if I go with an iPhone, let's say XR, right? So iPhone XR, you can see that this is what it's going to look like. And if I run it, it'll run nicely just like it did, right? As an example, on my Windows machine. Notice something else. I have this little thing here, and it says, do you want to put your project version or your project settings up online? If I did this, I would mess up things for my Windows machine, right? So be careful if you're sharing between Windows and Mac. If you did this right here, that's the one thing that's changed. And there's two options. There's something that says, if I click on this, if I click these symbols, right? So this one says discard changes, right? And the other one says, and you know, I want to accept the change, right? If I did this and then press push, then you're going to see my settings would change. But then when I downloaded it back on my Windows machine, it would break because this is set up for an iOS build and the other one is not. So that's the only disadvantage here compared to using GitHub. All right, that's all I wanted to show you from a Mac build today. I'm going to shut this down, right? There we go. And we'll shut down the Mac. So you can see that it's not so bad when it comes to, the how to use things. So Collab is really, really cool. One thing I can do is if I had the name of a person in class, then I could share with them. So I have some other people, and I can add additional people in here as I like. All right. Let's move on. That's Unity Collab, and we'll do more of that as we go forward. All right, so I've got this on. We're going to use Unity Collab as well, but I'm going to shut this down. So I'm going to go File, Save Project, and then shut this down and put it up on GitHub. All right, here we are. So I want this to be put up on GitHub, so I'm going to go CD space, and I'm using the command line, drag and dropping, and then pressing enter and clearing. I'm gonna go do a git init, git add dot. Something to note is I don't, unless I have a git ignore file. In this case, I do. I mean, I'm okay for it, but if I didn't, doing a git init would be bad. Okay, I do have one though, so I'm okay. Git add dot, just like normal. Git commit -m, and we'll say initial commit. And now I want to push to a new repository. Let's get that repository online. So I'm going to go to GitHub, and let's make a brand new repository. So I'm going to go to new. We're going to make it public, and it's going to be GAME2014 in the fall 2020 semester, and it's Lab 4B. Okay, and I'm just going to grab these last 2 lines of code here. Actually, the last 3 lines of code now is what I got to grab. And I want to go back to this and press right click. And notice how master has changed to main. I think this is a good change for GitHub. It's been called master for too long. Main is the main branch. Master, there's no need for that. It also has negative connotations in other places. All right, so that is up on GitHub now. And I've slowed down on purpose so that way you guys can be online with me in terms of our delivery. Okay. So I'm going to share this one up on Blackboard. I always share kind of the latest one, so I'm going to go to Build. I'm going to go to Web Link. I'm going to say GitHub link for week 6. And press Submit. And just because we're started, I might as well build in my my YouTube video for those people who need to do it as well. I'll grab that right now and put the YouTube video up too, since we're here. There we go. All right, so you guys should be with me at this point. Let's launch Unity again. So I'm going to go to Unity Hub. This is a bit of a pain, right? Some people say that they can survive without it, rebooting Unity. I highly recommend against it. For you to put it up on GitHub, Unity uses meta tags and so on, and sometimes it messes things around. So, you going directly from command line without Unity being shut down, I get some mixed results. And I haven't had a lot of success every time. I can't guarantee that it's going to be good. Some people find data loss in terms of things missing in their menus or in their scenes. Let's just avoid all that, my friends, and just go right into shut down and restart. It won't take long once you've established your project for the first time. All right, I'm just going to I'm going to close my services tab because I don't want it to bother me anymore. Collaborate, I'm going to keep open because I'm going to use this to push to the cloud here and there. Okay, but the inspector is what I really want up. Okay, so we created our player animation. And I want to do the other ones really quickly before we move on. So I want to go to enemy. So I want to go to textures. Here's my pixel enemy drone. I want to grab all this first, and I'm going to move it across into my sprites for enemy. In my sprites for enemy, I'm going to drag all these sprites into the scene, like so. I'm going to change this to enemy idle clip. Enemy idle clip. Okay. It's also going to make my enemy appear right here, right? As an example. And we want to keep it there anyway because I want to test out what it looks like. So I'm going to just use the move tool to move it up to around 4. Let's just put it to 4. Not 44, 4. I'm also going to change the enemy size like we did before to 2 times its scale. So 2 and 2. Okay. And I want to run it, but before I do that, I want to change this pixel enemy drone 01 to enemy. Just want to rename this thing. And let's run it and see what I get. Do I get a little animation? I do. And it's not as nice as the other one, but you can see that it works. Alright, that's cool. There's my enemy. Alright, well, I have pixel idle clip and pixel enemy drone 01, and it looks like a controller. So I'm going to take these two things here and drag them into my animations enemy folder. And in my animations enemy folder, I'm going to rename this pixel enemy drone 01 to enemy animation controller. Also called the animator. Alright, so those are the two things that I have separate from the enemy. Here's my enemy. I'm going to add a little enemy script to him. So it scripts. I'm going to add a new C# script. I'm going to call this enemy controller. My enemy controller is going to be attached to my enemy game object by just dragging and dropping this time. Okay, I just dragged and dropped from my script onto my component over here, and we're good to go. I'm going to double click on my enemy controller now, and I'm going to start doing some programming. So what do I want? I want the enemy to basically bounce back and forth across the top of my screen. Okay, so I need a couple of things here. One of the things I need is some kind of public horizontal speed. Oh God, there. I also want a public float horizontal boundary. Whatever that's going to look like, right? And I also want a public float direction. So I'm going to have in here, I'm going to set some stuff here. So I'm going to say that by default, actually I'll set them all up online. It's better that way. What I need though is I need a couple of methods. One of them is going to be move and the other one's check bounce. So it's going to be private void underscore move. We've done this before, guys, which should alarm you because we're copying. And a private void underscore check bounce. Okay, move and check bounce. In my update function, I'm going to say that I'm going to go move first, and then I'm going to check bounce. Again, all the same kind of structure as we used before, so nothing too crazy or something that's going to confuse you. I don't need my start, so I'm going to get rid of it. At least not in this case. Not for now. All right, so what is in my move? What is in my check bounce? Well, I want to say that I want to move to the right, and when I get to the right, I want to change direction and move back to the left. So I want to say that the transform.position is equal to a new vector3 object, where I'm going to pass in the x coordinate of my direction times my horizontal speed. So horizontal speed multiplied by my direction. And I'm going to pass in 0.0f for my y and my z. In other words, I'm not adding more. This is going to be a plus equals. Okay, horizontal speed times direction. So the way this works is horizontal speed is whatever times direction. In this case, let's say start at 1. And then when I go to check bounce, it'll bounce to -1. And it'll go the other way. Again, there's many ways to do this. I'm just doing it this way. And what I want to do is in my check bounce function, I want to say that, well, let's check right boundary. And I'm also going to check left boundary. We've done this before. I'm going to say that if transform.position.x is greater than or equal to my horizontal boundary, then what do I want to do? I want to say my direction is equal to negative 1.0f. Otherwise, if my transform.position.x is less than or equal to my negative horizontal boundary on the other side, then my direction will be +1. It'll go the other way. Is there another way to do this? Absolutely. 10 different ways. But this is very simple code. With a few lines of code, we can make our enemy go back and forth. All right, let's do a couple things too. To smooth the motion, I want to say that it's horizontal speed times direction times time dot delta time. So it won't be too fast. Okay, let's go back to our Unity and see what we can do. So in Unity, under my enemy now, I have a few options. My horizontal speed, let's make that 2. My horizontal boundary, well, let's see what that would be. So if I take this and I go all the way to the right, it's looking like around 2.1. So for now, we'll put it in 2.1. Again, this is not taking into account our responsive design. See the lesson a couple weeks ago for that. And the direction for now is going to start off at +1. All right. Cool. That's my enemy. Let's see if it works. And play. If everything was well, we'll be going to the right and then back to the left and back over again. Are you with me? Do you have this kind of thing happening on your little enemy? Russell says yes. It should be pretty simple. And we got Nate and Kat. Nice and slow and simple. And I'll wait a couple more minutes. What I want you to do now is push it across to LDPlayer. So File, Build and Run. And I want to please check mark that you're good, that you have the motion up on top and it's bouncing back and forth. Please. That's important. And we're going to build this in a second, and it's going to look okay. Notice that the animations are pretty good, but my bullet firing is really bad, right? And that's something we can correct later on. For now, it's okay. And it's building, and let's see how that looks from an animation perspective. It looks pretty good, actually. same speed as we saw before, right? And you see that it's kind of missing because I have a lot less bullets happening, and it'd be really much harder. This game would be much harder to use this way with the stream of bullets that I have here. But the animation's working, which is a good thing. All right, cool. So that works. Nice, 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 nice. Thank you for that feedback for those people who are following along. Okay, let's go back to this. So we've got our enemy controller. Looks like I have all these different things I changed. I'm gonna go to my Collab and I'm gonna go to added enemy, game object, and publish. So this is gonna go up on Collab. On GitHub, nothing's happened yet. I'm not gonna do it yet. All right, cool. So I'm up to date, ready to go. One thing that's bugging me is that build settings thing. So I'm gonna go to build settings and just refresh. And you can see now that I can select a device, which is not gonna bother me anymore. Cool. Well, I wanna get my pulsing bullet too. Let's do that one too. It's the last animation I want. So again, I'm gonna go to textures. I'm gonna grab my pulsing bullet. It's not as exciting as the other ones. I'm going to pull this into my sprites pulsing bullet. In my sprites pulsing bullet, I'm going to drag and drop my bullet in here. I'm going to call this the pulsing bullet idle clip. Pulsing bullet idle clip. Pulsing bullet, I'm going to rename to pulsing bullet, not pulsing bullet 01. There we go. I have a pulsing bullet 01 and as well as a pulsing bullet clip. These two things, like before, I'm going to pull them into our pulsing bullet animations folder. And the pulsing bullet 01, I'm going to rename to pulsing bullet animation controller. I don't care how long the name is, as long as I know what it is that I've got in there. So I've got separation. You're gonna be like, why this? Well, what if I had 5 more clips for the pulsing bullet? Some kind of weird, as it got closer, clip, it changed, whatever. Same thing with the player. If I had different player clips, I would have them all here, right? I wouldn't want to mix them with my sprites. Sprites are just, you know, my assets. But my animations are the behaviors. That's why I separate them. Some people like to do both animations and sprites together, where they add the enemy and do sprites, and then the enemy, and then they have, you know, the prefab, and they have everything in one. I know Joss prefers that. He likes one folder that has all of your enemy assets in one spot, so he doesn't have to hunt around. For me, I like to separate them. All right, so here is the pulsing bullet. I know that the pulsing bullet is going to act very much like the regular bullet. In fact, what I want my pulsing bullet to do is use the bullet script. So I can go to my scripts, I can go to my bullet controller and drag and drop it onto the pulsing bullet, right? Like so. Now I know that I want my vertical speed and my vertical boundary to be the same, right? So if I look at my prefabs under bullet, it's 4 and 5.1. I'm just going to use the same values for now. So again, pulsing bullet, 4 and 5.1. Okay. So I have the exact same script I'm using. Exact same script. What's nightmarish? Cat. The structure or the pulsing bullet? Pulsing bullet's pretty ugly. Oh, Joss's folder structure. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I like separating things out a little bit. But it doesn't matter. He works. It works for him. So that's the most important thing. All right. So prefabs, I'm good. You know, I want my enemy to be a prefab, so I'm going to drag and drop my enemy in there now on the prefab. So I have that. And my pulsing bullet, well, it's almost complete. I got some stuff to do here yet, but I'll pass that into prefabs as well for now. Let's get rid of my pulsing bullet. Let's get rid of it. I'll just delete it. And my enemy, I want another one. I want 2 enemies. So I want to grab another enemy and put him in there and put him underneath this one. And what I want is for enemy, the first one to go to the right and my second one to go to the left. -1. Starting off. Just cuz. And you know what? Let's put one more enemy in there too, just because our bullets are pretty slow. So enemy 3, that's gonna go a little bit lower than that. So 3 levels of enemies, and this enemy here is gonna go again, maybe to the right, but we'll start him closer to the left or to the right side of the screen already. There we go. And let's see how that looks. Okay, you should have something like this. Nice. One thing that's missing from the enemy is any kind of collider, and the bullets too. So in my bullet, I don't have a collider. Let's add a collider. So I'm going to add in a collider, a box collider 2D. Let's add that in. I'll make it a trigger. And I'll also give my bullets a rigid body 2D. My rigid body 2D for my bullets is going to have a mass of 0, angular drag of 0, and my gravity scale is 0. But my collision detection is not going to be discrete. I'm going to change it to continuous, so that it'll help me with the tunneling effect that we sometimes see. Alright, cool. My box collider, as you notice, is a trigger collider, which means it's not going to respond the way an actual physical collider would. Now here's the trick. When I want to make trigger colliders work in 2D, one object must have a rigid body 2D. If they don't have a rigid body 2D, then triggers colliders often fail. Right? So please make sure at least one of the 2 colliding objects has a rigid body 2D and a box collider 2D. Okay, if you're using triggers, which I'm going to. Next, I want to do the same thing for my pulsing bullet. I definitely want to add my pulsing bullet to give it the same kind of collision detection. That's one thing I'm kind of duplicating here, right? So add a new rigid body 2D, right? We're going to make it so that the mass is 0, the gravity scale is 0, everything is 0. Make it so it's continuous detection, right? So now you're seeing some duplication. That should worry you. And as well as, let's add in a box collider 2D. Box collider 2D again should be is trigger. Okay. And we have one more bullet I want to add. If I go to my textures, I have a bullet called a fat bullet. Let's put that in there. So fat bullet, you know, it should be at least twice as big. Actually, so should the other one. Here's my bullet. Here's my fat bullet, twice as big. And I want to attach the bullet script. So bullet controller, right? Same as before. 4 and 5.1. 4 and 5.1 for this fat bullet. And I want to also attach a rigid body 2D and 0, 0 for all this stuff. Make it continuous. Add in a box collider. And make that box collider trigger. One thing I want to do is on this fat bullet, I want to go in there and trim the box collider a little bit as it's really big. Okay. So that's my box collider 2D for my fat bullet. Let's make my fat bullet now a prefab. Pull it in to the prefab folder. Pulsing bullet. One thing I didn't do with my pulsing bullet is check to see what my box collider looks like. So one thing to do, first of all, let's get rid of my fat bullet. I don't need it in the scene right now. Let's put my pulsing bullet in there. And let's make sure it's twice as big. So it's the same size as our other ones. And my pulsing bullet, I definitely want to change my collider. So I care about only this part. I don't care about the red haze that's around it. Okay. Again, it's not that important. I'm just being picky. And let's just get rid of it. Oh, did I update the pulsing bullet thing? I did not. Let's try that again. Sorry. I have to change the prefab. One more thing. I forgot to do it. And probably you saw it. You probably spotted it before me. But if I change the object, I can update the prefab by going to here under overrides and going apply all. Yep. And let's try that again. Let's make that shorter. And I'll get rid of it. The other ones I didn't have to do because they're over here. Alright, cool. So I've got 3 bullets, pulsing bullet, fat bullet, and regular bullet. I got 1 enemy that moves around, and I got my player. Fantastic. Now, here's what I want to do. When the bullet... yeah, I know I can do that. But if you... How do you run with the... when I'm running with the these things here, pulsing bullet, player bullet, and whatever, what about when the object hits another object? When I hit my enemy? Well, my enemy right now doesn't have a trigger collider. Let's add one in. Let's add a new box collider 2D. Okay, let's go to that enemy. And let's adjust the size of that thing. Again, you can make it box collider 2D. You can choose to make a different type of shape. For me, I'm just going to keep box collider 2D right now. If you really want to be technical, what you could do is you can make 2. You can put one that goes here, like this, and then you can add another one. And let's just adjust that one. So you can say that with that one, I want to adjust that one so that it is, let's say this. And you have to be careful when you do these so they don't overlap. You can make it so that they don't overlap. Even if they do overlap, you can adjust it. But I'm going to make it so that the front looks like this. 2 box colliders. Again, smaller in terms of computational how expensive they are compared to using something like a mesh or another kind of geometry. All right, so that's this, the box collider. I definitely want to make both of those box colliders triggers. So the box collider is a trigger. Okay. Notice when there's 2 box collider, it says used by composite. If I unclick this, that's not good. Leave this on. It automatically detected there was another one. Leave at least them on as triggers. This is important. And let's apply that to my other prefabs. So now these ones have box colliders too. Pretty good. All right, so what I want now is when the enemy bullet, so scripts, under scripts, if I go to bullet controller, when my enemy bullet triggers a collision, so I'll say that public void on trigger enter 2D, and I believe it's collision 2D, or is it collider 2D? I think it's collider 2D. Sorry. Collider 2D other. Yeah, thanks, Russ. That's what I thought. Collider 2D other. Then what I can say is if I collide at all, that I want to produce a debug.log where I show what the other .game object other.game object.name. I want to put that name out there to see what I'm colliding with. All right, let's run this thing and see if all of them work like that. So let's see if unless I have an error, then we should be good. So down in here, whenever I collide, we should see some collisions. Yay! And you can see it says enemy, enemy 1, enemy 2. So it's colliding nicely. All right, cool. Now that I know it's colliding, I can take that little debug and turn it off. What I want instead is when it collides, I want to bullet manager return bullet back into the pool. So if I collide, I want my bullet manager dot return bullet of my game object back into the pool. Just like I did there. I could have copy pasted. So if I go out of bounds or if I hit something, it's going to take the bullet back into the pool, which makes sense. We don't want the bullet to persist after it's hit something. It's going to explode, right? Okay, back to this, and let's press play and do it. And now you can see a different pattern where I hit stuff, it doesn't go through the other enemies, it just stops. And it can't get to the other guy the way I am. Okay, so again, if I can do one of these, you can see that some of those bullets get absorbed by the enemy. All right, this is great. Let's see how that looks on the device, right? So I'm going to stop. I'm going to go File, Build and Run. And again, I try and frequently test on the device, guys, because I want to see if things are okay before I say, yeah, I'm good with that feature, let's move on, right? What if it's not good? What if it works on my editor but doesn't work on my simulator? My simulator is my second line of defense, my friends. My first line of defense is my editor, right? And then my last line of defense is a device that I have physically with me. That should be something you do. If you're building for mobile, you should have at least 3 things. Editor, VM, and then at some milestone, an actual device, right? And I would check with the device fairly regularly too, because a device is always more truer to form than a simulator. Okay? But you can see that my bullet firing is definitely a problem in my simulator. Okay. And my collision is not perfect either. All right, this is good. This is very good. I'm happy with what we have here. So far, so good. Let's put this up on Collab. So I'm going to go to Collab. I'm going to say added bullet prefabs, bullet and enemy prefabs. So I'm going to say publish. It's going to push to Collab. Your Unity simulator fires the bullets more like in the phone and not nearly as fast as yours. Are you using my version of the code, Michael, or yours? Like, did you use yours from last week or mine? Yeah, I have to tell you that my machine is also very fast, right? My machine is not limiting the bullets. My bullets are going as fast as they can. They're firing as quickly as possible, right? So that's an issue. My machine is a pretty crazy machine, so that's possibly why, Michael. So if my machine was a little bit slower, then it would try and do as much as it could, which is probably what yours is doing. Okay, so I'm good. Now I think it's the time we should actually start coding the factory. Okay, and we got to talk about this a little bit. I want to prepare. All right, so one of the things I want to do is, we've done animations. So up to this point, I've shown you a little bit of simple animations to make your characters work. We haven't talked about switching from one animation state to the other. That's coming, right? For example, a death type animation, a spiral, or some kind of attack animation or defend animation with some kind of force field or something else. But for now, we've got a very basic, things are moving on the screen and it looks pretty good, right? Here, what I want to do is start setting up my factory, right? And the use of my pattern. I'm going to make a new script. To start off with an enumeration. So a new script. I'm going to call this, so the bullet type. So it's bullet type. Okay. And my bullet type is not going to be of type mono behavior. So please get rid of mono behavior. It's not going to be mono behavior. It's also not going to be a start or end, and it's not going to be a class. It's going to be an enum. Bullet type is going to have the following bullet types: bullet, fat bullet, pulsing bullet. Right? You can also call them regular, fat, and pulsing if you like. Okay. Actually, let's just do that. That might be easier. So it's kind of a regular bullet or a common bullet or whatever, and instead of using bullet and everything we do, we'll just do one of these so that we know what it is. Okay, that's your enum. One thing you can't do with an enum is I can't do system serializable. Can't do something like this. So if you're used to something like system serializable, you know, a lot of times it'll fail with enums, but I'm putting it up there anyway. Okay. What system serializable does is it makes the enum available throughout your code. So in enum, bullet type.cs. Let's make another one, another script. So now that I have my bullet type.cs, I want to make my my factory. Okay, my bullet factory, depending on the bullet type, is going to return a different kind of object. All right, so let's do this next. So we'll call a new object. So again, new C# script, and we'll call it bullet factory. A couple of approaches that we can use here. All right, that I want to mention to you. One, we can leave it as a mono behavior. If we leave it as mono behavior, I can attach bullet factory to an object. If I can attach a bullet factory to an object, I can drag and drop things to it, like my prefabs. If I can't, it's more difficult for me to grab prefabs like my bullet types. So let's leave it as mono behavior for now. I want to get references to those three different types. So I'm going to say public. We're going to say for now, right? Let's use game object, and we'll use the first one. Will be called regular bullet. Public game object fat bullet. Public game object pulsing bullet. Okay. And if you really want to, you can put it inside of some kind of folder, right? For example, I want some kind of container or a what do I want to do here, Russ? It's called a in the editor.
Header? You want a
Sorry?
header?
Header. Thank you. Thank you.
A header?
And I want to call this header bullet types. Right? So bullet types. And I want to attach my bullet factory to my bullet manager for now. So I want to go back. Thanks, Russ, for that. If I go to my bullet manager, right, and I have my bullet factory, I want to drag and drop a second script to it, bullet factory. Now, eventually, we won't need this bullet inside bullet manager anymore. Okay? So we're going to drag and drop from the prefabs folder, right, bullet, fat bullet, pulsing bullet. Okay. So far, so good. So we have a bullet factory. All it does right now is keeps track of the bullets. Doesn't do anything yet. And you can see that that header that Russ helped me build was bullet types. Right. I have other ones too. I think I included them in player. Maybe. I don't know if I did or not. And the player controller. Did I? I did. See? Boundary check, player speed, bullet firing. Alright, cool. So that's what our factory has so far. Let's go back to our factory. What do we want our factory to do? Well, I want a function. First of all, let's make it system serializable again. So system.serializable. So I want to make it available, right? And I want to make a function, a public function, right? And the public function that I want is going to be, it's going to return the game object for now, okay? And we're going to call this create bullet. We're going to pass it of type of bullet type, which is going to be type. Remember, the bullet type is actually an enum. That's what it does. The bullet type is an enum. And we can switch it. We can say switch type, right, case bullet type regular, right, then, and case bullet type fat, and case bullet type pulsing. Okay. Small, tiny steps. What I want to do is I want to return an object. Now let's take a look at our bullet manager to help us out with this, because in our bullet manager script, here's a bullet manager script. Notice what we do here already. Inside our bullet, we're going to use the bullet factory inside of our build bullet pool script inside the bullet manager. Instead of instantiating here, we're going to use the factory to pull the proper bullet in here. All right. So I want to instantiate bullet here and return a game object. So going back to my bullet factory, I'm going to use instantiate, and I'm going to use the name of the bullet, so regular bullet, in here. But it needs to go somewhere, so I'm going to make a temporary bullet of type game object. I'm going to say temp bullet is equal to instantiate regular bullet. I'm going to say do these ones. And this one will be fat bullet. And this one will be pulsing bullet. All we know is that at the end, it's going to return the temp bullet. We don't know which one it's going to return, right? So return type is going to definitely be a game object, right? So here's something that I want you to think about. Why is the game object that's being returned, why am I getting an error? What does it say? It says local variable temp bullet might not be initialized before accessing. Oh, so it's looking for initialization because it's in the switch case. Why? Because our switch case doesn't have a default case, right? So we could throw an error in that case. But for now, this is why it's giving me an error. Fine, that's C#'s type checking. Let's just, if I use new game object, right, what that's going to do is it's going to send us an error anyway. It's going to send an error out. For now, this is going to silence the error, but that's not what we want. Okay, so that is create bullet. And that's kind of what we want. Kind of. I'm going to get rid of these things for now. All right? Kind of. What does this look like in up online in Unity now? So this is what it looks like. Again, it's a little switch case. Again, switch cases, guys, can be super annoying, and they can be overused. Here, I think it's a good use. We're saying, here's the bullet type that I want, as an example, and I want to, you know, return the type of bullet that I'm listening for. All right, let's go back to Unity. So in Unity now, how does this look in the bullet manager? Well, it looks just like this. That's all I have here. But I also have this in my bullet manager script. In my bullet manager script, I don't need this anymore, right? What I need is a reference to my bullet factory. So on the top, I'm going to go to somewhere up here, and I'll say something like, maybe in the same public area. Instead of me having access to bullet, I don't care about bullet anymore. I care about having access to bullet factory. It's going to cause some errors, not to worry. Okay. Up online, what I want is, instead of my bullet factory having a, the reason why it's not updating, by the way, is because I have an error. Whenever you have errors here, it'll stop you from updating your editor. So here, instead of instantiate bullet, for now, all I want to do is replace it with bullet factory.create bullet. And I'm going to pass in, for now, the regular type. right? Regular bullet. This silences my errors. Okay. What does it look like online? Well, I need a reference to my bullet factory. And all I need to do is pull my bullet manager back into itself, like this. I could also do get component bullet factory if I want to, but I'm not going to. All right, so yeah. So I only have one place for all my bullet types. These are all my bullet types. I have a reference to my bullet manager, my bullet factory, and my bullet manager, right? And now it should just work the exact same way as before. If I press play, we shouldn't see any difference. We're good to go. However, notice now that my game object, it says new game object, is way out here and ugly. And before we had, you know, my game objects, they were all nicely in here, right? But now they're over here, right? This is bad. Why is this? Well, before what we were doing is we were instantiating my template transform parent transform. This thing here made it so that the bullet manager was a safe space for this stuff to be instantiated. We need to move this script right now. The active false thing, that's okay. But as soon as I instantiate an object, that's when the transform has to be set. Not now. This won't work for all the bullets, right? So what we need to do is move this into the script, which means I need, in my bullet factory, I need a reference to my bullet manager. My bullet manager, yeah. Now there's a ways around this. All right, I'm just trying to get things. Remember what we do, make it work is my first thing. Make it work first. Afterwards, after we make everything work, we can adjust. So in here, what I want to do is, regardless of what happens when I'm asked for a bullet to be created, right? What I want is in every case, once it's instantiated, I want the transform parent to be here. So I'm going to say grab this temp bullet transform parent and pull it inside the bullet factory. And my parent is going to be equal to the bullet manager dot game object dot transform. Actually, I can just say transform.
Yeah, they're on the same object. Why do you need the bullet manager for this?
In fact, you're right. See? Look at that. You're smart, Russ. You make us go. So yeah, I don't need this here anymore. The set active thing, that's not a bad place to put it. I think I agree with that. But the actual, this part, when I create the bullet, it should be in the right spot. All right, let's run this thing and see if we have a better solution than we did before. We shouldn't have our bullets all over the place anymore, and yet we do. So what are these new game objects? Where are these things? What are they? How come there's a ton of, there's 50 new game objects all over the place? You don't have this? I have this. These are all the bullets. But what about all these new game objects? Where are they? Right? Look at all these things. And they're all of a 001 reference, right? Well, unfortunately, until they're used, they're not set inactive. That's why we see them. So going back to the drawing board, nice idea, Tom, but I haven't used all my 50 bullets, right? So that's why they appear before I have a chance to set them. They appear on the screen and they don't get set to inactive. So let's again go back to my bullet manager and remove this.
I could quickly interrupt. I think the reason is because, as Kat pointed out, it's the temp bullet equals new game object at the start of the create bullet. You can just set that to null and that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I could do that. Thank you for that.
I was confused because you were getting all these new objects. I'm like,
yeah, because
I'm like, right, I just skipped them.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. That's good. So this is okay too. Set active false. Up here we can do it here.
Whoa. can't believe that Russell has to say something that I just said.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it, Kat.
I gave you credit.
I didn't see it.
I said Kat said this, so change it. So I changed it to no.
I love. You know what? I love the collaboration. Kat, I love the collaboration between you and Russ. Thank you so much for all your input. I really respect the fact that you're paying attention. Thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks to Russ to put me on track. All right, so yeah, so this is, I mean, I put the set active. You can put as many of these configurations. And in fact, we do want more of the configuration here inside of my factory than inside of my manager. My manager should just be, hey, I want a bullet and I want to build it. That's what my manager does. And it'll manage the pool. Remember, single responsibility principle. My manager, all it cares about is managing the bullets. My factory creates the bullets. So again, back to that single responsibility decoupling idea. So the idea is good, guys. This is a good idea that we're doing, right? It makes it slightly more complex because we have more classes and code, but it's a good thing when it comes to control, okay? Again, Kat, thank you very much for everything. Appreciate it. All right, so let's go back to this and see how that works. We should just have the same thing, and now we won't have those extra game objects that are new, that are sitting out there that are ugly. And the bullet manager has all the stuff inside of it. Yay, fantastic. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want a random bullet to come out, depending on the type. Sometimes it'll be regular bullets, and sometimes it'll be, you know, fat bullets, and sometimes it'll be pulsing bullets. So I want kind of a really crazy stuff here, right? Now remember, we have a 0, 1, or 2 here, and we can convert these 0, 1s, and 2s into random, right? Now I could do it a couple ways. One, I can return a random bullet. So instead of create bullet, if I don't put something in there, I can make it so that the create bullet function picks a random bullet. That might be the best case scenario. So in other words, if I call for a bullet, yay. If I don't, like this, then inside my bullet factory, let's say that my type by default, right, we'll give it a default type of regular, right? There's my thing. But what we could do instead is, instead of giving a bullet type of regular, we could, in the enum, let's go back to bullet, we could choose random. So in random, right, in this, now we're cooking. We can say that if you don't tell me what it is, I'm going to create a random bullet. And random bullet means that I'm going to make this type something else. All right, so how do you recommend we go about this thing? I want to do all the random stuff in here. Before we go to regular, fast, or pulsing, I'm not going to make a choice that's here. I'm going to basically pick whatever this is. It's going to be random, right? Or I can put in random. If I want a random bullet, I can say I want random bullets, right? But if I don't specify, I get a random bullet back. So how do I do this? So I can go random, right? And let's call it random, like this, right? And I want random.random range, right? So if I go, actually, what I could do instead of doing this, that's the old school way of doing it. I can say mathf.random. Wait, is it not random range, or it's just random range?
It's just random.range.
Yeah.
No, range.
Yeah, no, it just came up with that. I did not pick it. And it goes from minimum to maximum values. So I can go from 0 to 1, but I want to convert it, whatever that number is that I get, I want to convert it into an enum. Right? So if I go from 0 minimum to, and this is something where right now we only have 2 bullets, but let's be smart about this, right? Then what I want is for me to put in a value here, right? But I mean, total number of bullets, we have a random as a thing, right? So let's just put in random range 0 to 2. So 0, 1, or 2, and I want to set that to something. So var random bullet is equal to this. right? So I'm going to get a number between 0, 1, or 2, right? That's what it's going to give me. But I need to convert this, right, into my type. I need to say that if bullet type, and I want to catch it early. If bullet type, I meant type. Wow. Is equal to bullet type dot random, then only then do I want to be able to do this stuff. I don't want to do it all the time. I want to do it early. I want to then say that my type is going to be equal to, I want to convert, right? So again, do you guys know how to do that? I want to convert. There is a bit of a conversion I have to do. I want to take my random bullet and make it into a bullet type. So I can say random bullet, I can try as bullet type, right? Where I want to convert, that would be nice, right? But that won't do it. Is, I can check to see if is, that's a conditional operator, that's not good, right? I can try casting. I can say bullet type, random bullet, bullet type, random bullet. Arg. Sometimes code hinting is annoying. I could do this, right? Where I cast random bullet as a bullet type and set it to type. And then do your thing. Let's see if this works, or if it gives me some garbage, like an error. If this doesn't work, it'll just give me errors. Let's try it. And we're good. So now I got different kinds of bullets, 0, 1, or 2, right? But I'm not getting the pulsing bullet at all. I'm getting either bullet 0 or bullet 1, or I'm getting bullet 1 and bullet 2, but I'm not getting bullet 3 because I know why. I think, if I'm not wrong, if I go to my enum, let's go to my enum for a second. Bullet type 0. Isn't that funny? 0, 1, and 2, but not including 2.
Random range is exclusive on the right, so it has to be 0 to 3, not 0 to 2.
It is, I was going to say, it's probably just including, but not including that one. Luckily for me. 3. Alright, let's try that again, and try that out, and we should have random bullets. It's weird. It's very weird, but what the heck? It works, right? And it works so that it's, you know, I can kind of make it look weird. Different kinds of bullets. They fire. It's going to spit out a bunch of garbage. It's a garbage ship. It just fires random garbage bullets. That's what it does. How about that? Pretty simple. But this is not adhering exactly to the pattern. Remember that the pattern looks like, I'm just going to pull it up again. The pattern doesn't look like this. Not exactly. Well, we got to think about this for a second. It needs, we've done this part. This kind of part is kind of done. The road logistics is like having our bullet manager. That's what it's like. But this part is not done. All right, where we have our bullet, because right now it's tightly coupled. We're returning a game object. We don't know which game object, which is close to this, right? So it works with Unity. But it'd be nice if we defined a, you know, apply damage or something like that interface, where the bullets can do that. So let me show you this, what this interface looks like. So let's start with the interface. Again, more code. So in my scripts, I want to make a new, create C# script. We're going to call this I for interface, apply damage. And double click. This apply damage, right, will not be of type mono behavior. Okay? Will not be of type mono behavior. Well, actually, there's a couple ways to do this. Let's make it mono behavior first, and then we'll take it off, and I'll show you what happens to it. So I don't need any of this stuff, and it's not going to be my class. It's going to be of type interface. Can I make an interface not mono behavior or of mono behavior type? No, is the answer. This has got to go away, right? So interface is like a contract that I'm going to write. So I'm going to write this new method called apply damage. And the apply damage method, it's not I apply damage, it's apply damage. It's going to return void for now. Okay? It can return a number, a float, if you will, whatever, like how much damage is it going to do. Let's make it so that it does. So let's say it does some kind of integer damage. Like instead of doing points, like 0.3, it'll do whole number damage, int. Right? So apply damage, it's a function that returns some kind of integer. That's what it does. And it's inside of an interface called I apply damage. I meaning interface. All interfaces start with I. I enumerable. Okay? What I want is for all bullets, so if I go to my bullet controller, all bullets are not only going to extend mono behavior, but they're also going to implement the I apply damage interface. Okay, here's where we run into some trouble. Now it says, in the little red dot, it says implement missing members. I want to do that. Let's do that. So at the bottom it says apply damage. It's going to return an integer. And depending on the type of bullet, right? Depending on the type of bullet, what we want to do is we want to apply different kinds of damage, right? Different kind of damage according to the bullet type, right? Which means we want to apply the damage that is being set as a property somewhere. So we'll say up here, we'll make a public in the bullet controller, right? An integer which is going to be damage. Okay? And this is going to return that damage. Okay? Remember, it's a configuration, apply damage, right? But now, because all bullets have apply damage, we can say that they're of type I apply damage. The interface defines the type as well. The definitions for bullet controller are now both mono behavior as well as I apply damage. I can compare another game object, and now I can know for sure that when I have if it's of type I apply damage, that it is a bullet. Or it's an object that has the apply damage method. You could also change this to payload, whatever you want. One interface, one method is typically how we want to do it. Okay, to keep flexible. All right, cool. Well, this means that then, if I'm going to return a damage, I don't know what my damage is. I want to set my damage, this public integer damage, I want to set it to the type of damage that it would do on creation. So I'm going to go back to my bullet manager, my bullet factory. When I make the damage, right, I'm going to say that, now this is funny. How do I check to see, I want to make a special game object. How do I set the bullet damage now? How do I do that? And this is where we get into funkiness, right? Because game object is the type I'm returning, right? Because game object is the type I'm returning, right? Then game object, we have no knowledge. Game object has no knowledge of the bullet type. So these bullets right here, regular bullet, fat bullet, pulsing bullet, they are of type game object, right? I can also cast them, right, as another type. I could say that temp bullet, like if I went down here and said temp bullet I can cast it as I apply damage, right? But my problem with this approach is it has to equal something, right? So cannot convert type Unity game object to I apply damage via a built-in conversion. It's not easy for me to do this, right? And if I check, if I did something like, you know, if I want to say type of, and then I apply damage, this, if that's true, right? If I apply damage is true, right? If my game object is of type damage, right? If type of I apply damage, right? And I want to say that if my bullet, this temp bullet thing is what I'm talking about. If temp bullet equals type of, or is type of, if I'm not wrong, how we do the comparison again? If my temp bullet equals, no, I don't think so. It's like an is. Oh, thanks, Russ, for that. I want to do a comparison. I want to check to see if it's a type of. So let's just do a little bit of searching here. Sorry, I'm forgetting. So type of C#. Is, yeah, is what we want to see. Is base, I could do that. Is derived, yeah, let's try that. If type bullet is I apply damage, is that something I can do? Yes. If this is true, right? And it is going to be, right? Then I can check for it what it is, right? I apply down. I can check to see that my temp bullet then, but I want to cast it. I want to be able to cast my temp bullet as, you know, instead of being just a regular game object, I want to cast it as whatever it's going to be. So what I want then, right, is for me to do two things. I want to get it as a game object. I want to get it as I apply damage coming in. So instead of me doing this, right, I know that, and follow me here for a second, if I said I apply damage here, I'm returning of type I apply damage. I can't instantiate this bullet that I'm getting, right? I can't instantiate that kind of thing. But, or these objects here, if I made them, instead of making them regular bullets and whatever, if I made them into I apply damage, even though they're game objects and, you know, as an example, and I can cast them as game object. Let's say, for example, I said, well, here's the challenge that I'm having here with Unity, right? See if you can do it. So they're all of type I apply damage, right? And I want to return a game object. I don't know which one it is, but I'm going to check to see what they are. Here's my regular bullet, right? So instantiate my regular bullet, and then I'm going to say as game object, right? I want to cast it as a game object. Let's see if I can cast it some other way. So game object, right? Here's my, oh, sorry, not this way. I want to do one of these, and I want to cast it as a game object, and I can't, right? Because it says I don't have that capability. Cannot convert type I apply damage to Unity game object. Can't do that. I definitely want to downcast though, because it is of type I apply damage, right? That's what it is. We know that each of these bullets are that, right? But even though they're mono behavior, they're both mono behavior and they're not, right? So now the next stage. Okay, so if they're not this, right, do I make both assumptions? Let's go back. So go back to this. Let's go back to this. Just gonna do. I have no way of making them special bullets. Now, if I made them into, instead of game objects, if I'm looking at them as game controller, right? Because game controller also gives me the stuff that I want, right? We go around the fact that we're using an interface in the first place. The interface just forces that we know that since all game controllers are also of type I apply damage, they're going to have a interface, right? Like that. So that kind of defeats the purpose. And this is where I struggle when it comes to doing things the factory pattern use proper with an interface in Unity without doing a bunch of casting. Okay? If you guys can figure it out, I welcome the feedback. But the way we did our simple factory works okay for me, right? Which means we don't need a bunch of structures. Yes. I have Russ coming up. Yes, Russ?
Yes. Why do we need to cast it as anything? Because the game objects themselves are prefabs, we know they have the bullet script on them, so we can just get their bullet component and change the damage.
We could do that. We could do that. I'm just looking at the classic pattern. I'm not saying that I disagree with you, right? Like what we'd want to do is we want to say temp bullet, like you said, temp bullet dot get component, and you wouldn't even do it here. You would do it. Well, actually, no, you would do it here, but you'd have to do it over and over, or even further down because you're doing it for all of them. But you want to change them for each one. Get component, and you do get component bullet controller. Right. And what you'd say is dot the damage. You can do like kind of all one. That equals to 10 damage. You know, as an example, you could do it this way for sure, right? But I was just hoping that there's another way. Instead of cast, we could cast it in a different way. But this is fine too. I mean, it's not what I wanted. It's not pure. Put it that way. It's using Unity's way of doing it. Let's say, right? So these are the different types of damage: 10, 20, 30. And then we'll return the template. But yes, we could do that. But then we don't need the interface other than making all bullets have a apply damage. All bullets have apply damage. We know that that's something that's the same for all bullets, or if it's a bullet type, so we can make them apply damage, right? Okay, so how does this work now? Well, let's try it out and see if it breaks anything. That's the first thing. So let's go back to this and. Again, it's not pure. That's all I'm saying. It's not. It may be the Unity way of doing it, and there's a lot of stuff to do with the Unity way. But how would we know which one it is? Well, you can see that the damage here is 30. For pulsing bullet, for fat bullets, the damage is 20. And for regular bullets, the damage is 10. Right? So you can do different damage according to what it hits, which is pretty good. Again, a lot of the configuration is happening in the factory, which is what we want. So from that perspective, I'm happy. Where I'm unhappy is the fact that we have structures we don't necessarily need. I apply damage to me seems irrelevant, right? When we can do a lot of this inside the bullet controller, right? We don't need to put that in there. What we can do is we can test to see if something has the I apply damage method. That's what it does, right?
Wouldn't then, if you wanted to avoid the Unity get component sort of way, wouldn't it be more don't pass in, don't even have basically don't have prefabs and have the factory create the prefab, so it like applies all the stuff, like create the object, create an object,
I guess.
add the
Yeah,
script.
I know. What a pain in the ass that would be, right?
Yeah, no, but well, that's what I'm saying. This like.
Well, we have to work with
the factory method is nice, but because we have Unity, the prefabs kind of already do the factory stuff.
Yeah, it kind of does it already. So that's what I'm saying. Like what I said earlier, which is prefabs are kind of factory objects, kind of, right? So for me to if we were doing this by hand, like let's say we're doing it with C++ Rust, then absolutely we would do it the way we're thinking, right? Because we wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have to even cast, right? Because it wouldn't be Unity's game objects, you know, it wouldn't matter. We could totally do this thing, even in regular C#, Java, or any other language. But because we're using Unity and we're using a commercial game engine, we have to adhere to its API, right? If we don't, then we're just giving ourselves more work to do. And that doesn't make any sense. Then it kind of negates the advantages. All right. See, Russ. That's a great name. Anybody have any questions around this, kind of implementation? So this is an example of our simple version of a bullet factory. I think it works. I think it still satisfies the single responsibility principle, which is part of the solid framework, or solid principles. Okay, so I think this is pretty good. Okay. I think this is pretty good. Any questions or let's see if we can push this across to, first of all, before we finish, let's do build and run, and let's see if that works on the simulator, right? Because now we have something new that we haven't tested on the simulator, and we'll put it up on GitHub, and then we're done. And maybe on Collab. I love it. Russ and Kat. What a team. All right. So again, I think it's a pretty good design pattern. I think it works nicely with the object pool, like we just saw. So object pooling and the factory pattern work kind of hand in hand. Factory pattern creates and configures the objects. Object pooling manages the objects, right? And this is a good thing. Cool. So we got some random objects happening. And there we go. I'm really looking for my pulsing bullet. Okay. It's not really happening. And I'm not hitting because I'm really slow. All right, cool. And I'm doing some crazy damage. Awesome. All right, guys, that's all I wanted to try for today. Let's just get the rest done. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up on Collab so we can have this later on. So I want to say something like added bullet factory and related scripts, because there's a bunch of them. Publish. And now we're going to file save project, close down Unity, and then inside git we'll say git add dot, git commit -m, we'll say added bullet factory. Okay, git push. And we're good to go. And let's take a look online and see if that all went good. If it didn't go good, then we will know too. One hour, 21 seconds ago. Cool. We're good. All right, that's it for me, guys. Just a reminder before we wrap up, a couple things that I wanted to look up here. Again, please be reminded that next week we're going to do more touch input, presses, and gestures. That's kind of part of it next week. And we're going to have our lecture on Tuesday, but I'm going to give you the weekly midterm test on Monday that you can finish by Friday. Okay, so, and also be reminded that your assignment 1 part 2 is not due to the 25th. Thanks to my my finger typing error, which is okay, and that gives you an extra week to get it done. Okay. Any questions before we go? Okay, guys, thank you so much, Kat. Guys, thank you so much. Then I appreciate your attendance and your input. And we'll see you guys next week. I'm going to hang out a little bit after this if you guys want to ask questions or have some comments that are offline. I'll stop the video now.